Hello and welcome back to GMT's World at War. A World at War. Last time we pretty much wrapped up the Axis turn. We made some mistakes. We left ourselves open to interpretation in some places. And one of the big concerns was, did we do our initial deployments right? I'm going to say yes. I ended up actually redeploying all of the units because I had to save the game. So I took pictures of all the hexes, and one thing I learned is when you take pictures to try to save, you have to move the stacks so that you can see the pieces underneath. Otherwise, you end up with a bunch of pieces that you don't have pictures of, and you have to guess which one was supposed to be at the bottom of the stack. So, yeah, definitely the next time I have to save it, I will take pictures where the stacks are at least shifted so you can see everything. It was no big deal for the navies. I mean, the navies have big stacks, but if you're ever saving the game, I would recommend slightly moving the pieces so you can see what's underneath. Again, total new war gamer here. This is my first kind of big war game that I've ever played. Definitely a physical war game, I should say. Obviously, I played Garrett Grigsby, but total noob at that as well. So the closest I ever came to playing war games was watching my dad play, the games from the 90s, like the Panzer Corps games and those amazing computer games, which I would actually kind of be interested in playing a couple of the really old ones, like the 8-bit soundtrack ones, because the music in those is fantastic and the sound effects, oh, so good. Once I get a computer. So that's the other half of this intro is kind of, I am planning to have a computer somewhat shortly, so I'm not going to abandon the physical board gaming at all. But I think I'm going to maybe do it once a week, once every other week. So it'll be interspersed with more regular computer game content, which will still be mostly Gary Grigsby, but I'm thinking about also including a little bit of some other games when the fancy strikes me. I've actually been really into sci-fi. I've been reading a lot of sci-fi books lately, and I was considering playing a sci-fi 4X game. I only own Sins of a Solar Empire. I actually don't own Stellaris. So I'd considered getting into Stellaris. The thing with any Paradox game is getting into it so far down the line, you gotta buy all the DLC, and it gets pretty expensive. But maybe if there's like a summer sale for it of some sort, it might let me get some sort of bundle, and maybe I'll play a little Stellaris. I don't know too much about Stellaris. I've never even watched real videos about it or anything. But I know it's 4X, I know it's in space, so that kind of checks the boxes. I had actually just recently read the Three Body series from Xin Lu. He's a Chinese communist who wrote this trilogy of kind of foundation-y type books. Not super far future like the Foundation is, but has a similar feel to it, like kind of inevitability of defeat, that kind of idea. And they were really incredible books, so it got me interested in playing a Space 4X game where you can get a feel of that. And actually, in regards to those books, there's a new game that came out called Terra Invicta, and that game is basically those books. So I was kind of interested in playing that. I don't know if anyone here plays space games, but I do enjoy them. And obviously, I would also consider playing like maybe the Star Wars mod of Hearts of Iron or something like that. Because I think that works in the current patch. I don't know, but I do play Hearts of Iron. It's just I don't film it because I never used to film it because my computer just couldn't run the filming and the game at the same time. Would melt me. But yeah, that's kind of the direction the channel is going to go once I have a computer again. So number 1 will be Grigsby, 2 will be the board games, and 3 will be a rotating something else. And I'll try to do at least one video every other week of the second 2 of those. Maybe alternate. So like 1 week board game, 1 week something else. It might end up being a space board game. There is this game from GMT that I was looking at called Space Empires that's really interesting. But I have a feeling that one might be, again, really good for multiplayer, but maybe not so good for solitaire. But it's also out of print, I think. I'm not sure. So that one is probably further down the line. But anyways, let's jump back into A World at War. A World at War. And what we have to decide now is what the Allies are going to do for their diplomacy phase. Did I already do this? Because I have negative numbers. I must have already done this for this turn. Okay, so now we need to think a little bit about intelligence. And the section for that is the kind of later 40s. So 44 is where it starts. And I really have not read all of the intelligence rules. So I'm still kind of learning what is possible as a solo player. Because every time, like, if I was playing multiplayer, it's just a matter of reading the rules and playing it. But as a solo player, you have to read the rules, figure out how both sides are supposed to play it, and do a simulation of that. So that makes it a little trickier. You have to know the rules a little bit better as a solo player, because there's no checks and balances. That's definitely what I'm finding about this game is, as a solo player, you're learning both sides at the same time, which makes it much harder. So you can do some research on intelligence, I know that. Intelligence category of research and production projects includes traditional spying and signals intelligence projects, as well as projects of a more political nature. Ooh. I don't care necessarily about the research, but I guess, do you have to research it first to use it? Probably. Well, we don't have to worry about that again until the next game turn, in that case. Because we didn't do any research on intelligence. Unless they start with points. I don't know if they do, though. Intelligence research projects. No, they don't start with any points. Okay, so that'll probably be something we do in the later turns then. Well, probably next turn, to be honest. Okay, that's cool. So we're in pretty good shape to just play. That's great. I mean, not that the diplomacy stuff is not just playing, but it's the clunkiest part of the game for me because I'm solo. I think it would be really fun if you had like 3 or 4 players where the diplomacy actually can make a difference to how you play the game. And I would love to play this with multiple players once I learn that game and I could teach it to someone. And I probably will do that at some point, but for now it's just a great fun little experiment for me. All right, so in that case, we move to step 2 on the sequence of play, which is oil and BRP adjustments. Newly produced oil counters go on to oil centers. So this is something I skipped because I didn't really understand it last time, but I want to learn it now. So we're going to read the oil rules together. I know this is probably the worst part of my videos, the oil, or the discussions about the rules, but I don't think there's other channels that have done a whole lot on this game where they talk about learning the game, and they're not talking from an expert perspective, but I think it's valuable to see someone struggle through the early learning phase, not just suddenly skip to the part where they're an expert. I'm going to take a look at, I guess, 33. Is that where oil comes in? Maybe I'm missing something here. Let's see. Oil. They don't have oil centers as a number. Let me see in the index if oil is an item. I mean, obviously I know there's a logistics area for it, but I'm wondering where you put it in. Alliance, faction, oil, status, and sources. So 33. Yeah, it looks like all the oil rules are on 33. If you're looking for it. And like I've talked about before, there are no page numbers. Don't know why. But I guess it's probably for ease of reprints. So you don't have to worry about if you change the typeset, the printing changes, but that's probably my biggest gripe about the rulebook. Okay, so what we want to do is at the start of each player turn during the oil adjustment phase, newly produced oil counters are placed in each oil source under friendly or neutral control, from which moving alliance factions may draw oil. Oil counters can be moved by land or sea. Oil counters which remain in an oil center are eliminated at the end of the player turn. So you can't stack them up. You gotta spend them or lose them. And there are some limits to how many oil reserves you can have. So the Germans are interesting because they have synthetic oil, and they have 2 of those at the beginning of the game, and 1 or 2, I don't remember which. They're the only ones that don't have a traditional source of oil. The other countries have on the map a source of oil, and places like the United States have unlimited oil, basically, and Russia has multiple oil sources, but it can lose those, so it actually has to protect them. So kind of like a case blue situation where you're thinking about protecting your oil fields, or in the Germans' case, taking oil fields. But as we learned from history, taking oil fields a little trickier. So I think it's just a matter of we put down the oil counters on the map. So I'll do that, and we'll switch over to the table. Okay, so skipping ahead here, we already have our oil counters down, and on the map it tells you how much oil that you're supposed to put down. But that's what the little oil counters look like. They're just oil barrels, and those are used for basically mechanized operations. Now, what we need to do with the Allies next is decide what our movement should be. And so we don't actually have any ground units in England, which was an interesting deployment choice that I made. So almost all of our forces are already in Africa. But the thing is, Italy's not in the war, so they really can't do much. So all of our movement is going to be with our planes and our ships. So I think the first thing we want to do is the planes, and then we'll do the shipping. So the one thing that the French kind of lack is a good source of air power. So just so we're clear, we're doing the British right now, but oops, jeez, I'm concerned that the British are going to not have enough ground forces in this initial turn here to really do anything. We're not going to have a BEF. And so what that means is that we're going to need to really utilize our air factors to the best of our abilities. Now, we can rebase things if we need to, but I think for the most part we're in range of any targets that we would want to hit. And so our first target is actually going to be maybe just putting up counter air over like the Maginot. So let's rebase all of these naval air factors down to P23. Oh wait, I can't go that far. I guess we'll base them here. And then those will be flying air support onto these hexes here, just in case. That's more just to remind myself of why I moved them over. I'll probably just put them back at the end of this player turn. What can the French do? Can the French actually cross the line here? Probably not. So I don't think we even want to try. But what the French do want to do is redeploy at least something to Tunisia, just so we have something there. And the Brits probably do want to naval redeploy something over to Gibraltar, just so it's there. Our options in the Nile region are pretty limited. Don't have a lot of infantry. It's probably the biggest problem for the Brits right off the get-go here. So I'm not sure what we're going to do until we can build units. So I guess it kind of is what it is for now. We'll also rebase, well, let's see how far we can get. So from Harwich, 1, 2, 3, 4 would be there or there. So not really terribly far, but I might as well put them in there. And let me just make sure that I'm doing the rebasing thing right. So I'm suddenly getting vibes that I'm maybe not using it to the fullest extent of the war here. Where's the air crap? Oh, up to twice its operational range. Oh, okay. That's great. So we can do 8, actually. So that means I can put them where I want. What I'm trying to think, the biggest thing I want to war game out here is whether or not British air support on the Maginot would have allowed the French to break through if they had really tried. So I'm actually interested in trying an offensive operation with these guys. It'll be probably a limited offensive. I don't think we're going to exceed 15. So let's check out the costs here. So if I threw in everything on this hex here, Mannheim, what would we be committing? So I'm not going to throw in the bomber. That's going to have a different mission. But I will have 4, another 4, and then another 4. So it's only 12, and you need 15 for a full offensive. Okay. Well, I think that's what we'll do then. The Allies will do a limited offensive. I think it would be in their best interests to try to declare war on the Italians right now, because Italy is not as prepared as the Brits are. But that kind of goes against the ethos of the Western democracies. So even though that would be the best strategy, it's not going to be allowed, because we want to make sure that we're the good guys. Although it would definitely be an effective strategy at this point in the game. Let me get to the record sheets for the Western Allies here. Okay, so in 1939, our construction limit's only 40 and our BRPs are 60, so we can afford a small offensive. We don't have to declare war. So this would be, I guess, 70. It's so hard to read that. Is that France? I don't know. Or is that supposed to be, I guess that's supposed to be America. Interesting. Okay, so nothing for transport losses. Nothing for other losses yet. And no declarations of war. But we're doing 12 on the Western Front. So that's good. Now let's see what the odds would be in this fight. Are there any? I guess the only other movement we want to do is naval movement. So let's plan that out a bit. Okay, so we did the air movement. There is no counter air that we're going to do. We're just going to do regular air support. Resolve patrols. Okay, so I think we need 5 transports for that oil, so we'll transport the oil over, or attempt to. So that would move through here, and then that would try to be sunk by the 2 pocket battleships that are still there. So I guess it turns out that all of those oil factors from America just get sunk. So take them off the board for now. Try again next turn, I guess. That really makes the Brits want to probably try to get over there and take out those last 2 pocket battleships ASAP. But they also have to worry about the rest of the German fleet, so they can't split things up too much. So for the Brits, we're gonna try to spread things out here. We'll send the Hood the Warspite, and this is going to be a pretty strong little task force here. Hood, Warspite, Renown, and the Repulse. So all the battle cruisers and a battleship. We're gonna designate them Task Force 1, and their job is going to be to just keep tabs on the German fleet and try to engage if possible. So they're sailing out of there, and so their range is 40. So they can 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. We're going to put Task Force 1 right here, just to allow them to be very close for interception. Then we're going to send a Mediterranean task force down to keep tabs on the fleet from the Italians. So that's going to be Task Force 2, and we're going to attach a carrier with them. The Courageous. Give them a bit of an escort. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 2, 4, 25, 6, 7, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 40. We'll park them right off of Tunis. We'll call them Task Force 2 if I can find the marker. Otherwise, they'll be Task Force 3 up there. Task Force 2. So that's a nice little stack there. And their job is just to hold the med, basically. That's actually a really good spot for them, too, because it'll prevent the 2 Italian fleets from combining, which is one of the ideas that would be effective. Okay, and now, what else do we want to do Navy-wise? I know we obviously have to do some naval repairs on our 2 battleships that got damaged. But we probably do want to send something out to try and weaken those pocket battleships. So we'll send another task force out there. and all I can do is enter the strategic warfare box. I can't actually do anything on this turn because we kind of already did that battle. So we would send them out to the Atlantic to try and find those 2 pocket battleships. And it's just going to be 1 task force because I want to guarantee we find 1 and destroy 1. That's basically the idea. The other one we'll let go. Okay, that's pretty much the naval game right now. So we used up almost all of our capital ships actually. I didn't want to risk any more than just 1 carrier for anything right now. But makes our home base look a little cleaner. So that's good. All right. Well, nothing else really major can go on for the Brits until the war gets going. So let's think about the French movement, like their kind of tactical movement here. And I think the first thing to note is that we want to sea transport one of these guys over to Tunisia. Maybe I'll send the Tunisian division over there. And then we want to spread out on this line here. Okay, so I think you need the same number of destroyers or transports. So I'm going to use a destroyer. And we'll send them with a battleship too, just to be safe, just to be on the safe side. And we'll call that, I don't know if I have the task forces for France. I don't even know if they get any. That's a good question. I don't think I have any. Hold on, let me just check. No, France does not have any task forces. So we will use a British task force flag, and they'll be designated Task Force 4. We're all on the same side here. We're friends. I don't know if I just misplaced it or if they really don't have any. Okay, so they will head over to Tunisia as well. And once the turn turns, they can offload that unit and get them out onto the map. Okay, so what else do we want to do here? Oh, whoops. Did I put him on? Oh, I did. Okay. Just got paranoid here. Put him on the top of the stack so I remember he's there. Okay. What else do we want to do with the French? I'm tempted to, well, I guess we'll try to resolve that one battle and maybe move a reinforcement down if necessary from the northern part of our line here. I'm tempted to try to form a better, shorter line that could have a double stack on every hex, which would be much better, but I don't know. All right, so let's do this battle. So we're attacking Mannheim with 2 infantry and then a combined 8 air. So all this stuff is going at that battle. So 12 factors against 3. So that would normally that would be 12 to 3 odds. But we have fortifications. And I believe fortifications really kill your combat potential. Where did I put the combat chart? No, it's around here somewhere. Oh, this would have been useful. Interesting. Okay. Still learning that the naval stuff. Okay, so I read up on the rules. This hex here, because it's behind a fortress line, gets a +2 DM defensive modifier. So it would normally be worth 5 because everyone gets +2, but it's actually a 7. So it's 12 to 7 odds. So slightly better than, or slightly worse than 50%. So that's not great news here on this chart. So I guess that will round down to essentially even odds. And in that case, we have to roll a 3 or better just to get that unit off the board. So that's what we're rolling for here. I think that's possible. I mean, it's very possible. Even odds aren't terrible. But that's even odds just for one hex of movement. So because we're the good guys, we'll use a white die. All right, let's make sure this is nice and flat and preferably in the picture. And I'll roll. Exactly a 3, so it's an EX. So that means they lose 3 factors and we lose 3 factors. It's an exchange. So the side with the fewer combat factors taking into account the defender's DM loses its entire force. So great, we killed that guy. The larger side removes at least an equal number of factors taking into account the defender's defensive modifier. And I think we're just gonna lose some of our air support here. But critically, we knocked out this guy here. So that's really good. So we'll put him into our little mini discard pile here. And we will eliminate one of these, and then the other one will be down to 50% strength. So we'll put a little marker on him. And we'll go on to the next hex, I guess. So those guys will move in there. Oh, that's actually complicated. We don't necessarily want them to... Well, no, that'll be fine. Because we can move in some reinforcements from the north. Okay. Yeah. But we can't really exploit any further now. That's the thing, is our lines would get very, very thin very fast. So, yeah, we crossed over the line. And if we can hold it, that's great. But if we can't hold it, we're kind of screwed. And we get basically no defensive bonuses except for the river. The river is amazing for us. So they can only really attack from the north.
without incurring the river penalty. Okay, so we will move both of these air units back and uninvert them, and eliminate the guy who got killed, and voluntarily eliminate this guy because he is now useless. So we're going to rebuild air anyways. Okay, so he got uninverted, and that was the only combat we're really doing. So we achieved our goal. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. So we spread ourselves a little thinner on the line, but we gained a hex, which is actually very important because it means that now they have to make a choice whether they want to declare war on the Benelux or not. So I think they probably will. I think they'll declare war on the Benelux later. First, they'll start moving things back from Poland over to this front, just to slow the progress of the advance. And then they'll probably just take out Denmark just for the hell of it, and maybe Norway as well, if they can. And that way it kind of expands the front out, which is what they really are interested in right now. Okay. So that was costly but effective. And we'll see what else we need to do here. Okay, so the last part of the turn here is to return our task forces back to port. Obviously this turn is kind of a weird one because there was no real action, because nobody put to sea. So we're going to leave the task force there. And we return everyone to port. Okay. So those are good for next time. They just steamed around. And this task force here just drops off our infantry unit in Tunis, and then buggers off back to Marseille. And we're good with that marker for now. Great. So we had a little bit of action on the Allied turn. Now we will finish out the turn by just doing our post-combat phase adjustments. So we didn't end up bombing this turn. I'm kind of hesitant to lose the bomber yet, so we'll hold that off till next turn. But we do want to do our unit construction phase. So I think for that I might just show the results, not go through the long discussion about the rules and everything, because we already kind of went through that on the Axis turn. So I'll just show the results. All right, here we are at the end of the Western Allies turn here. So you can see that we did end up taking some losses here, especially for aircraft for the Brits, so we're going to have to rebuild them. And our decisions are thus for our builds for next turn. This is actually all of the builds that are coming in next turn. So pretty much everyone is building a lot of air, except for the French, who are trying to get their last 2 tanks onto the board. but in general, it's kind of weak. Now, as for the Commonwealth forces, I chose not to really deploy any until we get control of the Atlantic here, until we can handle those pocket battleships. I'm really worried about trying to move the Canadians across, and they're not necessarily needed right away. We have a little bit of time, or think we have a little bit of time. I don't know. But that's kind of the strategy there. We're not going to deploy Canadian or Indians to Europe just right away. Hopefully the French can kind of hold the line while the Commonwealth forces, get their act together. So the only thing left in this turn is the Russians. The Russians have really not too much to do here. We can kind of move up our lines. Now, they could have done some subversion attempts and stuff like that diplomatically. But for fall 1939, I'm going to say that they're going to remain relatively inactive. We already did their research, so that's taken care of. So I'm just going to move them up to the treaty line here. You can see the Molotov Soviet Pact right there, the Nazi Soviet Pact line, the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. So we're just going to move everyone up, and this is just a pure movement phase. So all you got to worry about is the second number on the counter. So pretty much everyone's in range of the border already, because they were kind of already on the old border. So we can all just move on up. Now you might wonder about this marsh effect, and it actually is terrain-wise. It's more important for mechanized units than it is for our infantry here. So we still get full movement points. What I'm not so sure about is Bessarabia. I'll have to read the rules in between turns to see if they're allowed to move up there. But theoretically, if they can, then they probably would. But that's pretty much where I'm going to leave things. I'm going to put this tank here just to be safe. It was stacked underneath the planes. And the reason you could do that is because this tank here will exert a zone of control, so that nothing could pass by it. So even though there's gaps in the line, it's kind of holding down that sector. So that's important. You can still see these damage markers there. What I should have done is rebuild those units. I'm not sure if that should count against the construction limit. I really think it should, in which case the Nazis would have been able to build a lot less than they otherwise would have. But, you live and you learn, I guess. I definitely took more damage than I should have, but that's kind of the breaks, I guess. So next turn, we will limp our ships back to port to get repaired and hopefully eliminate those pocket battleships, assuming that they don't bugger off, which they very well might, now that there's some enemies around. And probably look to find a way to deploy the Indians at least. They're still off the map for now, but they're going to be coming on. I didn't even bother putting them. If you wanted to, you could start putting some stuff for the Commonwealth on. But I didn't even bother with that yet. So we will eventually get some Commonwealth forces into the fray, but France is going to have to hold the line against the Nazis for now. And hopefully they do an okay job. They should have enough infantry to hold. And especially because the Nazis have some other objectives that we want to immediately fulfill. Specifically Denmark. We want to just quickly take Denmark for those extra 10 BRPs. It'll be very easy, and then we can just blast through the Benelux for another 25 BRPs, and then we'll be ready to take France. But that probably won't be until spring 1940, I would say. So probably 2 more turns. So this was fall 1939. So if we're targeting spring 1940 for the invasion of France, which I think is the earliest we could do, because depending on I think we could probably swing the BRP cost of declaring war on Holland and Belgium in the same turn, and just kind of blitzkrieging them. I don't know how strong they are. I did quickly take a look at their forces. So these are kind of all that they have. They have not much. I don't even know if all of these get deployed at once, or not, but they don't have a ton of troops. So, I mean, obviously they do have okay defensive terrain. Like, if they're lucky, they can get a +1 from that river. But, yeah, they don't have forts. They don't really have, a ton of room to fall back. So I guess optimally, you just kind of, sit on your capital, I guess, with as many factors as you can. Because it's kind of like Poland. Like, the best you can do as Belgium, for example, is probably putting, 3 factors on it. 3 defensive factors. So it'd be, something like this, where you've got 3 defensive factors, and then you can put up your counter air. And that's the best stack you can do. There's really not much more you can do. Now, the Western Allies could have, if they were smart, they could have used their diplomacy points to try and activate Belgium and Netherlands early. But we didn't do that. Probably should have. If I were going to kind of game out the game, that's probably one of the better strategies, is to try to get them immediately activated so that you can throw up British air in defense of either Belgium or the Netherlands. Probably Belgium, because Belgium, you could pretty much defend it. If you stick, if you do something like this, where you stick a guy on that side of the Rhine there, then they have to break through Rotterdam. So you could have a 4 there, so that turns into a 5. That's not super easy to break, especially if you can put up air cover. And then on the north side here, you would just focus on holding Rotterdam and The Hague. So it'd be a deployment something like this, focusing heavily on that. And then you would just focus all your air, as the Allies on the Belgian border. Yes, the Dutch forces will get eliminated and they'll capitulate, but it might hold you out an extra turn if you decide to throw some French forces into the fray as well. It's maybe doable. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. The thing I kind of want to try is I want to see what the shore bombardment rules are like. See if maybe we could get some naval bombardment action in defense of the Benelux or France. So the French fleet could maybe show up and do something. I don't know. But that's kind of the plan. I don't know what the hell happened to that guy. Got knocked off at some point. It's like, I knew there wasn't a gap there. We moved everything around. But yeah, that's the plan for next turn. So till next time, when we start turn 2, hope to see you back here. And hopefully I'll be able to start getting these turns moving a little bit faster. I don't intend to spend 10 hours every bloody turn. But I'm definitely starting to feel a little bit more comfortable with at least some of the basic rules. And I'll just keep adding on the more complicated rules as we go. So until next time, see ya.